YouTubers, it's Charlie. So we got to talk about The Flash episode 18. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen it. Shit totally got real. There were a lot of things that they explained in the episode, so I'll explain those in addition to my, top 10 WTF just like normal. There were a lot of comic book Easter eggs, a lot of Easter eggs for Star Wars and things that were not necessarily specific to The Flash too. So here we go. Number 10 WTF, Hunter Zolomon Zoom Explain. So we totally get the flashback. Barry's opening narration was kind of consistent across the entire episode thematically, where they show you how much Barry and Zoom are a product of their upbringing and their environment. Barry turned out to be a hero because he had this amazing support system. He had a Joe West to take him in after he lost his parents, but Zoom did not have that. And I might have missed it during the episode, but I don't remember them saying what happened to his father, if he was executed for killing his mother or if he was thrown in prison. That's why I was thinking, maybe his father is the man in the Iron Mask. But I'll talk about this a little bit later in the video because Zoom was like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you who the man in the Iron Mask was. And I was like, well, of course we'd believe it's his father, but I totally love this American Horror Story mental institute that they took him to. And you get the electroshock. That's a nice Flashpoint Easter egg when they're shocking him. If you've never read Flashpoint, it's this really complex story that DC used to reboot its universe. It was the mechanism they used to launch the New 52. So if you remember the New 52, that all came about because of what happened during Flashpoint. But during that storyline, Barry finds that he doesn't have powers, he needs to get them back, so he has to recreate the accident that gave him powers in the first place. So he assembles all the chemicals that were involved in his original accident. He gets struck by lightning a couple times, but it works and he gets infused with the Speed Force. So that was kind of the motif that they were going for in this Earth 2 Hunter Zolomon origin story. He's in the middle of getting electroshock therapy when he gets hit by the wave from the particle accelerator explosion. Number 9, Barry tests out the tachyon device. So there was some timey-wimey stuff going on here. When you see him run back through the Keystone sign, you see him enter a portal, then exit really quickly. That was him going to Kara's Earth in the Supergirl episode. Now, if you didn't see that Supergirl video that I did, I'll put a link in the description, but I explained that the episodes were filmed out of order, like it was all wonky. So when he shows back up in Star Labs and was like, how long was I gone? He's talking about the time that he spent on Kara's Earth. They didn't address it in the episode, which kind of sucks. That was one of my complaints about it, just because they wanted to keep it so self-contained, they make it seem even less connected. But whatever, the tachyon device works. The funniest thing about this, though, is when Barry is like, this amazing piece of science that's enabling me to go 4 times faster than I normally would go, looks lame. Can you make it look cooler? The reason they did that was so that Barry wouldn't have to constantly run around with that device attached to his chest. He would have to wear that around through the finale. So I think them eliminating that and putting it underneath his symbol was just a practical thing. Like it would look weird if you walked around in that all the time. The way they make it smaller, number 8 WTF, is by reverse engineering Harrison Wells' speed siphoning device that he developed based on the Turtle episode, where Barry's speed got leached out of him and they gave it to Zoom and he injected it. Like Speed Force heroin. So Barry's essentially wearing a version of that just kind of injects the Speed Force into himself. It's like a quick charge battery. Number 7 WTF, Iris starts talking about Barry, so you can kind of see what's going on here. They're seeding the idea that Iris and Barry are going to be a thing eventually. Don't really know if it's going to happen before the end of the season, but it definitely feels like a big finale type moment, like they want to go out with a bang, so there'll probably be some sort of Barry-Iris kiss before the end of the season. Number 6 WTF, Cisco is now gaining some of the powers or learning to use his powers in the way that Reverb did. All I need now is the guy liner. I always love the guy liner jokes on the show. If you go back and you watch old episodes of Arrow, you watch old episodes of The Flash, you can see a lot of the actors wearing guy liner whenever they have their suits on. Like when Oliver has his hood on, he used to wear a lot of guy liner. When Harrison Wells was still the Reverse Flash in season 1, he wore a lot of guy liner. It was really funny. But Cisco has his Anakin Skywalker moment where he flips his shit. So big Star Wars reference, I think I'm going to be like Anakin and turn to the dark side. I think I'm going to become Darth Vader. Barry gives him the pep talk, and it circles back around to that opening narration about how important it is that you have a support system around you. Look, Cisco, you have all these wonderful people around you. You have Team Flash. You're not going to turn evil, unlike Zoom, who didn't have any of those things. Even if you don't like the way they use opening narration, they've done a really good job of circling back around thematically to that idea. Like the opening narration will tell you what each of the storylines is going to be about. So Cisco versus Earth 2 Reverb is a lot like what Barry was talking about between Joe taking him in and Hunter Zolomon getting taken to the orphanage because he didn't have anybody. Kind of the same thing with Wally too. Like he has Joe now, Joe is taking him in, so Wally's going to turn out great. I wonder if Earth 2 Wally is this complicated. Number 5 WTF. First reference to Earth 2 Wally. We haven't seen him yet, but don't you kind of laugh at how long they've waited to address certain things? Like the minute we saw an Earth 2 doppelganger earlier this season, you're like, where's the doppelgangers for all the people on Team Flash? How come we haven't seen them yet? Eventually we saw Killer Frost, we saw Reverb, we saw Deathstorm. So now that we're approaching the end of the season, they're finally answering some of those big questions. The man in the metal mask is going to be one of the last ones that they answer. The actor that plays Zoom actually did confirm that it's going to be a finale reveal. So the metal mask isn't going to come off till episode 23, but we'll probably have a pretty good idea who it is before then. So number 4 WTF. Earth 1 and Earth 2 Jay Garrick are really Hunter Zolomon. So here's a big theory that I developed based on the way they were talking in this episode. They kept referring to Zoom as Hunter Zolomon. There is no Jay Garrick on Earth 1 because he's Hunter Zolomon, which makes me feel like what they're saying is that even though he was calling himself Jay Garrick earlier this season, he wasn't Jay Garrick. He was always a version of Hunter Zolomon. And we'll talk about that twist again in a second too. But because it's always been Hunter Zolomon, I feel like there is a version of Jay Garrick out there somewhere that's good that we'll be able to use on the show. So it's not like the TV show has thrown Jay Garrick, the character from the comics, under the bus just because they needed a really big villain twist. So if you're upset that they turned one of the greatest good Flash characters from the comics into a villain on the TV show, I don't think that that's what they did. Hunter Zolomon in the comics does become Zoom. That's what I think they're doing. So in the future, don't be surprised if there's some twist in the story that allows a good version of Jay Garrick to continue working with Team Flash on whatever basis they want to. So I feel like they'll defeat Hunter Zolomon, but the Jay Garrick character, the truest version of Jay Garrick from the comics, will continue to exist on the show in some form. But that it'll all depend on how they defeat Zoom this season. Number 3 WTF. The Flash versus Zoom. Now this was just awesome, watching the Tachyon device kick in as they were running around town, going all over Star Labs. The way they used the Cisco cardboard cutouts of his parents to freak him out and stop him for a little bit. But if you're wondering why Barry didn't just kill Zoom on the spot there, that's not really who his character is. He's not a character that is letting the darkness in, Hunter Zolomon style. They just want to make that distinction that Barry is willing to sacrifice himself to save his family, and they didn't want to undercut that by having him defeat Zoom at the end of the episode. They wanted to have that oh shit moment. So number 2 WTF is that Zoom steals Wally, but Barry makes the trade using the turtle device from earlier this season. So it was just like earlier when Zoom injected the Speed Force, did his Speed Force orgasm face. That's his Speed Force O face. Just like, oh my god. Don't you just wonder if he's going to turn into pure Speed Force if he gets any faster? I feel like there's a version of this story where that happens, but I don't know necessarily that the show's going to do that. Really cool watching Cisco place that telephone call to Earth 2. Now we know Cisco can communicate, phone call style with Earth 2 metahumans. But number 1 WTF, of course, is now that Barry has lost his speed. Now there have been other episodes like the Farouk episode during season 1 where he loses his speed. It's not the first time it's happened. If you haven't read a lot of Flash comic books, typically gaining and losing speed is a pretty common occurrence. So it's like most of the time the Flash is just trying to get faster. So you get faster to defeat the villain. But what do you do when you lose your speed? Like that's a big hurdle for him to jump over. So it's going to be really interesting to see him in the next couple of episodes till he gets his speed back. Yes, of course, he's totally going to get his speed back. We don't know how that's going to happen, if it's going to have something to do with Velocity 9, if it's going to involve some clever twist in siphoning all of Zoom's speed towards the finale. No idea how many episodes it's going to be, but we do know that next week's episode, he will still be speedless. That was what that whole Chronicles of Cisco short during the episode was about when they said, presented by AT&T, the Chronicles of Cisco. That's just like the Arrow Blood Rush ads. It's kind of like an ad integration made to look like a short episode of the television show. Like AT&T bought ad space on The Flash, they created a short webisode and then just gave it to us for free. So in it, Cisco is trying to make the Flash suit bulletproof. So that's why in the teaser for next week's episode, he's telling Barry this will only absorb 1 punch. So Barry won't have his speed, but he'll still have a couple Cisco toys to play with that will help him defeat the villain. So let me know what your favorite moment of the episode was. Was it like the pants pooping oh shit moment where Barry completely loses his speed? But we also have to talk about the WTF of how they explained the doppelganger Jay Garrick that we were seeing the whole time. I know a lot of you were upset by this, like, what? It was a time remnant? He just went back in time and got a duplicate? That explanation sucks. So I'll just go on record as saying that, anytime there's a big twist in a TV show, whatever fan theory you come up with in your head is always going to be more spectacular than what the actual explanation of the TV show goes with. It's true of Game of Thrones, it's true of Walking Dead, any show on TV, but you have to remember that this is on the CW. Who watches the CW? Mostly young people, a lot of them do not read comics, so yeah, I would have hoped for a slightly more spectacular explanation, but I totally understand why they went with something simple like this. Which also makes me wonder about the man in the metal mask. Is that going to be a similar reveal where it's like, oh, this isn't nearly as complicated as I wanted it to be? But I really like what they're doing with the Wally West character now, how they're kind of slowly bringing him into the fold. He's going to be closer to the family. Barry has a nice relationship with him now, just getting closer to the point where he can be part of Team Flash eventually. But he did leave the building before Barry took his mask off, so he still doesn't know that Barry's the Flash. And otherwise, I think I addressed most of the big WTF questions that they raised in the episode, like the explanation behind Zoom's backstory. Dad was a psychopath, murdered his mother, he was taken to an orphanage, supposedly committed a whole bunch of murders, was institutionalized, given electroshock therapy. That also led to him getting his Speed Force powers, so it just made him worse. He went from deranged to being a deranged speedster. But if you kind of notice, Caitlin was able to appeal to like a little bit of good in him. I think it's going to be like a Darth Vader situation where it's like, there is some good left in you. But that's actually another big question for me. Let me know, do you think that this really will be like a Darth Vader type situation where they find a way to redeem him somehow at the end? That might have also been why they included that Cisco Darth Vader reference too. But giveaway time, there is a new round of the giveaway, just reminding everyone, all you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. It's a $20 Amazon gift card. There'll be a couple more DC videos this week. It'll just stay open until I post my last DC video. You guys have no idea how much fun I'm going to have making gift sets with that face right there. That's one of the funniest faces in the show so far. But while you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here to learn all about my Spider-Man villain theories for that new movie, and you can click here to learn all about Marvel Phase 4 movies. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.